Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's Research America Alliance member meeting. And as always, thank you so much for being Alliance members. We value your partnership so much. And I know you probably know the drill by now. I'm sorry. I'll say it one more time. We're using Zoom's webinar format. And so you'll be on mute, but please use the Q&A box at any time to ask questions or make comments. And my colleague, Terry Schwartzbeck, will ask them right after John is finished speaking. And I'm so pleased to introduce John Burklow, who I'm sure many of you know. He's the Associate Director of Communications and Public Liaison for the National Institutes of Health, NIH. John has been in the role since 2002. And I know I'm not overstating it when I say that no one, John, is more skilled than you are at conveying the value of medical research, as well as the contributions that NIH and NIH-funded research make to medical progress. We're really looking forward to hearing from you today, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Ellie. Very kind of you. Appreciate that. Let's see if I can get these slides to work. I got a kick out of the photo we provided you soon after college, I think, but I have to work on that. Anyway, thanks for having me this afternoon. And I'm going to go through what our life has been like over the last year in a little bit, but also to talk about what we do when we're not doing COVID, and then what we've been doing during COVID, and also at the end, talk about how do we keep the rest of the portfolio at the front of everyone's mind. Let's see here. Okay, believe it or not, 1 year ago tomorrow, President Trump came, former President Trump visited NIH. He toured the Vaccine Research Center, met Kizzmekia Corbett, Barney Graham, John Mascola, others, and we followed up with a press conference in the VRC, and that actually went very well. And he remarked that to the press that they were treating him so nicely. And Dr. Fauci couldn't resist. He said, it's because you're at NIH. So anyway, things kind of evolved or devolved after that. But fast forward to right after the inauguration, here we are with President Biden, Vice President Harris, and Dr. Fauci joining them immediately there. And then soon after, and this was one of the reasons why, and I apologize that I wasn't able to, I had to postpone this talk a couple of times. I believe once was because the Vice President came and got her second dose at NIH. And it was wonderful. And I don't know if you get to see her remarks, but it was just spot on. And we were thrilled to have her and the second gentleman come to NIH. And
John, let me interrupt you for one moment.
Sure.
Are you supposed to have slides as you're talking, or are the slides coming a little bit later?
Oh, no, I'm talking from slides, but you can't see them?
We can't see them. I'm so sorry I didn't hop on before to let you know.
Okay. Let's see. I'm sharing the screen.
This is the story of my life. I have never been able to successfully share anything.
Let's see. Huh.
I wonder if we can help.
I'm going to May here, and it just keeps going to the slides here.
If I was an artist, I could draw stick figures and we could do it that way, but it would be sad for everybody.
So sorry about this.
That's okay. Do you want to email us the slides and we'll post them?
Yeah, that's probably okay. Sorry, everybody.
I think everybody is happy
Maybe-
to just take a breath.
Okay, or I should just talk from the slides and get them to you later or something. I'm not sure what's.
Well, yeah, John, that would also be fine. Whichever way you want to roll. If you've already emailed them, then we'll make sure we get them up. But if not, just keep on going, and we won't worry about slides.
All right, let me just see here. I'll send them to Terry.
Perfect.
I'm sorry, I'm sending them to you, Ellie, because I can't find Terry's fast
Oh,
enough.
no, that's okay. That's okay. I am going to pop them forward. And then I'm going to stay on with you so I can laugh at your jokes and you can hear me laughing instead of being on silent. Let me see here. Is it coming through?
Believe it or not, we thought we worked all this out. So shows you my technical skills here.
Why don't you go ahead, and I'm going to wait for those to show up and then forward them along. Yeah, because for some reason, oh dear, for some reason they're not showing up in my emails.
Yeah.
This is what you call the sausage being made in real time.
Okay, I can describe the slides as I go. Soon after, as I mentioned, soon after the inauguration, we had a call from Vice President Harris's office that she wanted to come out for a second dose, and she did, and it was a wonderful event, as I mentioned. Then right after that, we got another call saying the president wanted to come out. And so that was terrific as well. February 11th, he came out to campus. He toured the Vaccine Research Center, met with Kizzmekia and Barney Graham, John Mascola, Dr. Fauci, Dr. Collins, obviously, and then came over to the Natcher, which you're probably familiar with, Ruth Kirstein Auditorium in Natcher,
yes,
the Natcher building, and gave a very uplifting speech and also made news. And so he was on NBC, and I mean, he was on all the networks that evening and the next morning. So we were happy about that. And he gave a great shout out to the folks from NIH. So that was terrific. So within, this is a record, within the first month of a president's tenure, Vice President, second gentleman, First Lady did a Zoom with us with the Cancer Institute, but it was available to everybody, and the president came out. And so at this pace, I think, also the science advisor, or soon to be confirmed, hopefully confirmed, science advisor, Eric Lander. So lots of positive attention from the White House.
Wow.
My next slide just lists out the different things that we do in our office, in case you're wondering, hey, what do they do over there? We're more or less the headquarters for communications at NIH, but as you probably know, we're 27 institutes and centers and about 10 offices. And each institute, center, and office has its own communications office, some small, some quite large, like the Cancer Institutes. And we're also the main support for the NIH director and the NIH leadership. And I'll go through some of the things that we do, but we also coordinate constantly among all the institutes and centers. And we're also the liaison with the Department of Health and Human Services and the White House. Right now we're having daily calls with White House comms and HHS, not just us, but across HHS and across the government, just to stay in touch on COVID-19. Also, one of our jobs is to communicate with the NIH community, and I'll talk more about that later. It's been unprecedented in the last year, what we've been able to do. We're also I mentioned working with HHS, but other agencies as well. Sometimes the Defense Department, sometimes the State Department. We work with reporters every minute of the day, reporters, editors, producers, and I'd say last year, even though we're not physically in our offices, although I'm here today, it's been the busiest year we've had. Also, we manage the NIH homepage. We lead the web community here at NIH. We develop and implement strategic communication rollouts for all the big news that you hear about. We put together a strategic plan. We also do science communication, Spanish language, engage in social media, VIP events, and we also do FOIA, which is sometimes just a really challenging thing to deal with. We also work with visitors to campus too.
Do you see your slides, John? Now they are showing.
Ah, good.
This is great. So what you've just been talking about is showing up.
Oh, good. Okay. So let's see. So am I at the key message concepts by chance?
We can move you. Yes, there you are. Perfect.
Okay. So shall I say next slide after that?
That would be great.
Move it along. Okay. So key message concepts, and thank you very much for doing this.
Oh, sure.
The message concepts are like, oh, this isn't rocket science. Of course, no, it's not. But it's important to have them because we weave them throughout all of our messages, subtly and sometimes not so subtly. But and if you take this last year, for an example, the key message concepts, I think you'll hear them quite often. One, the value of long-term investment in medical research, especially with mRNA and the vaccine developed here on campus. I think sometimes people think it's an overnight success. And you really have to always remind people that this came upon so much work that's been happening 20, 30 years or longer. Also, the impact of the Human Genome Project and how it all comes together to support something like this in an emergency. And the second point, of course, the progress and health impact of NIH research. I think that's goes without saying. And the importance of basic clinical and translational research. Explain how the basic research was necessary to get us to the clinical, to get us to applied and to vaccines and therapeutics that we've needed. The next bullet, it's interesting, the economic impact of NIH research, that was big maybe 5-10 years ago. It's not so much probably because it's just been overtaken by the public health emergency. But over time, every once in a while, people say, well, why should we invest in NIH, especially members of Congress? They'll say, why should we invest in it? And we want to we show real numbers as to the benefits economically for the country. The last one is the footprint or impact of NIH, not just a place in Bethesda. That is an ongoing challenge to explain to not just the public, but members of Congress that we're not just a place in Bethesda. A long time ago, a member of Congress asked the NIH director, said, Doc, I drove down the street, I looked over and thought, how are they spending those billions of dollars in that little place? And so it's not so little, but again, 83%, 85% of our money goes outside Bethesda. And that is a message that we are continually reinforcing, that it's not just here, but it's in everybody's state, everybody's neighborhood. Next slide, please. This is just an indication that we are out there all the time. It may not always say NIH or NIID or others, but we are in the news, especially the last year. Next slide, please. Just some numbers, about 7,000 press calls come through us, and about 200 we did in the last year to Dr. Collins alone. I don't have the numbers on Dr. Fauci, but I'm guessing it's in the thousands. He's just amazing. Next slide. This, again, just gives you a sense of the numbers in social media. Very active Twitter account, Dr. Collins has his own Twitter account, about 165,000 followers now. When we do a Twitter chat, we get about 70 million impressions each time. We have a project we haven't been doing lately, but we will start up again, the NIH in your state. And again, that is to show what I was talking about before, show that NIH money is, the funding is throughout the country, not just here, and Facebook and Instagram as well. So next slide, please. I just wanted to, we have a lot of products that come out of our office, but just to flag for you, you might find this interesting. The NIH Research Matters, almost like a weekly blog on research coming out of NIH. I put this up here just to remind ourselves and remind us that one of the jobs that we have in our office is to plan and manage special events and special guests. And we've had a number of special guests over the years. Everybody from Jane Goodall, Yo-Yo Ma, the Dalai Lama, Barbara Streisand, so on. And I hope that once all this is over, we'll be able to do this again. But this is a lot of fun, but also sometimes fairly stressful. Like the time the Dalai Lama came in the morning of, I learned that he also invited 800 Tibetans from New York City down to meet with him at NIH as well. So, and we accommodated everybody. So it's a long story. Another thing that we do that takes a long time, sometimes years, but we feel like it can be worth it. We work on long-term documentaries. The Discovery Channel, First in Human, this aired, hard to believe, almost 4 years ago this August. We had film crews embedded in our hospital for more than a year, and I don't know if you've been able to watch it, but it's a 6-hour documentary, very moving, almost hard to watch at times, but I think it really describes what it's like for a patient, for a participant in a clinical trial, but also people who work here. Why do they work at NIH, and why do they work in biomedical research? If you haven't seen it, I recommend you watch it. Also, this took a long time, but this aired right before the pandemic really took off. This aired on February 7th of last year. This was Finding Your Roots, and they featured Dr. Collins, Shirley Jackson, and also Dr. Varmus. And I think you might be able to see that. So, okay, so what have we been doing with ourselves over the last year? So we've been doing a lot of external communication, obviously, but we've also been doing a ton of internal communication, and we try to keep it constant. And we've, especially in the beginning, we had as many Zooms and WebExes, and we were using all the different technologies that we could to stay connected to our staff. And you can see that Dr. Collins, Dr. Fauci, and Dr. Gibbons and others are still out there quite a bit on Zoom, and mostly Zoom, but other platforms. But we did, let's see, we can go to the next one. But and also the many press briefings, as Dr. Fauci, we do these, we were doing these in here. In fact, this was earlier on when he slid his mask off just slightly, and now everybody's wearing it. If we're even in 20 feet of each other, everybody's wearing 2 masks. It has evolved over time. Also following up with social media briefings. We've had some major stories. This was a profile of Dr. Collins that came out. Amanda Gorman's on the cover, and that just came out earlier this month, or no, actually it was last month. And it's very, if you don't know Dr. Collins, I think if you read this, you would really get a sense of who he is. And also, of course, there's Dr. Fauci and the FauciPhenomenon, and how pop culture has kind of exploded with so many things I don't have to tell you because you've seen them all. I'm sure you saw this last Saturday, or at least saw it on YouTube later. Kate McKinnon during her impersonation of Dr. Fauci. And I noticed that our logo got into there. So it's kind of funny that most of my tenure people have said, nobody knows NIH, and you really have to do a better job of getting that out there. And of course, the price of admission is too steep. I would trade still to be in obscurity rather than having a pandemic. But it is interesting how that has gotten out there. Also, just a flag for you, speaking of documentaries, you may have seen a notice of this, that there's a documentary coming out either early summer or early fall on Dr. Fauci, and it's just called Fauci. And I worked with John Hoffman, who did First in Human, and he connected with an individual who had been making a documentary about him on the HIV vaccine quest. And so this really should be something. National Geographic is producing it, but we're really looking forward to. This is about the life of Dr. Fauci. Meanwhile, what's going on in the rest of NIH? So yes, all this focus on COVID-19, but we still have to get out information and news about cancer and the Brain Initiative. And this is just a sampling. It's Alzheimer's, the HEAL Initiative still charging along, the All of Us program, nutrition, that's been moved over to the Office of the Director from NIDDK as a special office of precision nutrition. Also, we've had a number of new leaders come in to run the various institutes. So there's a lot happening that's going on beyond COVID. And that's one of our challenges, is to make sure that we keep all of our activities at the forefront and make sure people know that we're still doing a full spectrum of research, not just COVID-19. Also, I wanted to flag for you that something we announced yesterday is the Unite project. And this is on our website, but I encourage you to take a look at it. And Dr. Collins put out a statement, and this is really just the start of it, but for NIH to address and to end structural racism in biomedical research. And so I encourage you to look for that on our website. So I probably talked longer than I planned to talk, but we can open it up for questions.
That's great. This is Ellie, and of course I'm going to start. You just mentioned the new structural racism initiative. That's wonderful. Is that going to be cross-institute, John, as far as you know?
Yes.
Or,
yes. There's a group that Unite stands for the different committees that have assembled. And it's definitely intramural and extramural, taking a comprehensive view of what is and what we need to do. And it's definitely across NIH.
That's great. And I imagine that there's opportunity for public input. We'll look for that and make sure that we push that out. I just a minute, I'd love to hear how you ended up in this incredible role where you're doing a million things. Did you start out in communications? Was that your dream when you were, when growing up or in college? Or
actually, I started more in public health education, and I worked at the I bet my whole life has been at the NIH. I started at the Cancer Institute as an intern, believe it or not, and did smoking cessation, patient education, clinical trials, all kinds of public education. Then I worked for a fellow named Paul Van Neville, whom some of you might remember. He was the head of communications for the Cancer Institute. And he showed me more of the press side of the world and the public affairs. And so I ultimately became the deputy for the Cancer Institute's communications office, came over here to become the deputy. And then when Dr. Varmus was the director, believe it or not. And then I took this job in 2002 when my boss, Ann Thomas, moved on to Memorial Sloan Kettering. So
they kept punishing you by promoting you.
And then
more work.
expected Dr. Collins to move me on in 2009 because that's what people do in these jobs. So, but he didn't, and so that was to my great benefit, and it's been fantastic to work for Dr. Collins. It's been just incredible, and never a dull moment.
And he himself is such a natural spokesperson, and champion for medical progress. It must be the synergy between the two of you. Well, I'm not going to dominate as much as I would love to. Terry, join us with questions. I'm sure there are some.
Yes, and just a reminder to folks that you can type those in the Q&A box. One question coming in, is there any sort of digital toolkit or anything that folks can download so that we can share tweets, LinkedIn posts, et cetera, in support of NIH?
That's a great question. We do have digital toolkits in our news and media section, but they tend to be on specific topics. So, but we do have, I would encourage anybody to follow Francis, follow the NIH Twitter, Facebook, Instagram.
That's good.
Great. And would you have any specific advice maybe for labs and researchers who are trying to raise their visibility, especially in light of what you mentioned about NIH in every state? I know a lot of labs would like to raise their visibility. Do you have any advice for them?
That's a great question. I find sometimes I'm assuming people have made connections and they haven't. So to find out who your public affairs person or communications or whatever they happen to call that office in your institution, and connect with them and start working with them. It may not hit directly the first time, but if you establish a relationship, then they'll know to go to you. And also, I would get some media training if somebody's never talked to the press before, because it is a different language. It's a different way of talking. It's almost inverse from how we're used to sharing information. So, yeah, I would say relationships and skill building, and not just internally, but they'll help you get to know your local reporters or national reporters as well. So I think half of it is just getting comfortable with members of the press, because I know some people say, oh, I never talk to the press. They never get it right. They never do this. Well, actually, I find most science reporters are really good and have a lot of integrity, and they want to get it right. And so it's not 100%, but it's worthwhile.
All right, I've got a question of the day. I hope this isn't the first time you've had this question. Is NIH on TikTok?
Don't think so. I think that was, yeah, I personally have been told, don't get involved, but I do get sent stuff on TikTok all the time.
Yeah, well, it is. So
I'm sure we are on TikTok. We are not on TikTok officially.
Hey, John, could we steal 5 more minutes of your time, or do you need to roll? Because we've got questions coming in.
Great. Do you anticipate a greater focus perhaps on cancer moonshot, given President Biden's interest in cancer research? Should we look for something like that coming up in the future?
I don't know, but I do know that, as I mentioned, the First Lady did a Zoom call with the Cancer Institute early on. Last week, she visited Massey Cancer Center in Richmond with Dr. Sharpless, the NCI director. So I don't have any, news in that regard, but I would think, given their interest, that there would be something along those lines.
Great. And another question, is there a timeline for the extramural report concerning researchers? Any sense of that?
Extramural report, meaning the impact of COVID-19 on researchers?
Yes, I think so.
Guessing that that's exactly it. Yeah.
I'll have to ask Mike Lauer, who's the head of extramural.
Perfect. Thank you.
And also, I would recommend Open Mike to look for Mike's. He has his own blog. And if you're not signed up for that.
It's terrific.
It's a good way to keep up with what's going on.
Oh, great. Maybe we can grab the link for that if we have a chance. Here's a question from Michael Erickson. John, a voice from your past. Delighted to hear about the Unite program on structural racism. What other opportunities are there at NIH for public health research, including social determinants of health and applied research?
I would think it goes across the institute, well, maybe not every last institute, but I think it brings in a pretty wide array of institutes. I just remember from my cancer days that there was considerable funding in that area, NHLBI. I don't know about NIID, but it's just because I just don't know. And also what I mentioned earlier with the new leaders coming on for the institutes and centers. You've got leaders coming in with a broad perspective, and it'll be interesting to see how their portfolios might change over time. I'm not sure, but you have new ones for dental and eye and nursing, arthritis, so it should be interesting.
Great. Ellie, did you have one more, or do you want me to,
I just wanted to mention, I know that NIH is deeply engaged in long COVID. I know the name keeps changing, but research, and that's probably including some diseases like CME that there's concerns about that crossover.
Yeah.
So I think it just speaks to the fact that NIH is ahead of the curve and foundational, both, and so appreciate that. And I have a million questions, but we've already kept you longer than we promised. So I think we should let you go and just express our appreciation for what you do. Oh, can I ask one more question? Okay. If you had to say for you personally, what the strongest economic argument is for NIH, like which one resonates the most with you? Would it have to do with jobs, or would it have to do with a kind of an economic multiplier? Or...
Yeah, it seems like the economic multiplier seems to resonate well with people as they've gone around. And also, I think the most compelling time, I mean, the numbers are good and the statistics are good, but the stories, I think, are the most compelling. If people can tell a story about the impact of NIH funding in their community.
I love it. The more personal and local, the better.
Right.
Great.
When you look at the Chicago area, I believe it's more than $1 billion of NIH funding goes into the Chicagoland area. I know it's a large area, but
wow,
I just think gets your attention a little more.
It sure does.
Broader statistics.
I think that's great. And again, localizing, I think that's really, really important. Well, we so appreciate you and the fact that you were generous with your time with us. And sorry for the glitches.
I'm sure it was my end. So I apologize.
It's the story of my life.
But thanks for having me. And hope to all see you in person. Thanks to everybody for watching.
Yes, absolutely. And I hope that you all see on the screen our next two guests, Dr. Ann Schuckett and Dr. Peter Marks. And again, thank you for your membership. And if you are listening to us or with us today and your organization isn't a member, give me a call, anyone from Research America, and we'll convince you into it. Okay, see you next time.